And it's working.
Maggie always has music whenever she goes live. She makes her own music. So,
Gotta
hello
have an
everyone.
intro.
Yeah. We have our own intro. Welcome to Purse Strings. This is Barb Provo, founder of Purse Strings, and we're so happy to be here today in our Purse Strings for financially fearless women, and we are streaming on LinkedIn, which is super cool. So, widening our audience, widening our reach. Purse Strings provides free online tools and resources so women can make smart financial decisions for themselves and for their families and for their businesses, as we're going to talk about today with Tracy. Um, the other part of Purse Strings is we look over the landscape for top tier financial professionals who really want to work with the female market. And we vet them and engage with them and onboard them as our Purse Strings approved professionals. And then we promote them to our communities of women. And one way we do that is by presenting them in front of our community here at Purse Strings. And this month we're talking about entrepreneurship, which is super cool. A lot of women are leaving the workforce. I think the stats are 1,800 women open a new business every day, which is really cool. And so we're going to talk to Tracy today about all that and what you need to consider. So I'm going to hand it over to Maggie so Maggie can introduce herself and make the introductions as well.
Give me one more second.
Okay,
Making
so
sure this is all going.
She's all things technology in the background. I always say looking at her looks like she's landing a plane somewhere, but she's making sure that all of our connections are good and ready to go. How does it look there?
I don't know why this one's not telling me we're live, but we're live in our main group, which is great.
Yeah, that's the most important group.
Um,
It'll kick in here now and then. Sometimes it takes a minute, but yeah, I think we should just get ready to go, Mags.
all right, let's do it. So I'm gonna kick you out. Today we have Tracey Bissett, and we are so excited to have you on today. And so we're going to talk about business and starting a business and some questions that we should ask ourselves. And so first, I want to introduce Tracy and kind of have you introduce yourself. I know you're a business financial coach, which is a great reason why you're talking about this topic today. But if you'd let our audience know a little bit more about you, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Maggie. Really excited to be here today. So my background is actually all in banking and commercial lending and risk management. So I've worked with and in support of entrepreneurs for 20 plus years. When I left my last role in TD Bank, which is one of Canada's big five banks on the eastern seaboard of the US, I started my own business, Bissett Financial Fitness, and really put together all of the things that I learned and loved to do over the years. And so I'm a professor at a college. I teach students how to become financial planners, work with young people. And my real passion is around supporting business owners get understanding of their business, their pricing, their cash flow, their financial results. And so it's really fun for me to be able to do that. And I'm excited to be here because what we had kind of teed up earlier, those are all the questions I get pretty regularly. So really encourage people who are checking it out to drop questions in the chat. Be sure to let me know if there's anything you want answered. This is totally informal today. As well as if you're thinking of something later, please be sure to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you, either what you thought, what other questions you have, and any way I may be able to support you.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, we're so excited to have you. And so, we're starting about jumping into a business. You kind of have that idea, no matter really what it is. There are a couple things that we always, talk about trying first. And so one of the things I wanted to first ask you about is what's the best way to test a product, or how do I dabble in this to see if it's going to work?
So firstly, if you are employed, it's very important to make sure you have the approval from your employer before you're going to start anything on the side. And if it's totally unrelated to what you're doing in your day job, it's probably fine, but you want to make sure you do that so that you're not breaching any terms and conditions of your employment contract. because you don't want anybody jeopardizing that. You don't want your full-time employment jeopardized. Then you want to get clear on what it is you're passionate about, what it is you want to offer. And the very first thing that you should be doing is find who you think the target audience is, start talking to them, start getting some feedback. If it's something that you've got kind of an outline, maybe you want to provide a certain service or a certain product, either make up a small bunch or design a small taste of your program or your service and actually get it out to those people and see what they think. Are they willing to pay for it? Lots of people love things that are free, but if they have to go and pull out their wallet, they don't always want to pay for things. So get the feedback from them, let them try. And it's kind of like your beta, your kind of pilot test. And from there, you're going to be able to make refinements because you're going to find out, you know what, I thought these were the people who were going to want to buy this, but they don't. So either I've got to revise what I've got, or I'm going to go after and target and market a different sector out there. So that would be the first way I would say to get some feedback. You can even informally, before you actually do anything, do some surveys. LinkedIn is a fabulous place to go out and survey people in terms of their interests, what they're willing to spend money on, and what they need in their life.
Definitely. Yeah, because you really have to, just because you think people need it doesn't mean people think they need it, which I think is a big, hard thing to understand sometimes when you have these great ideas. But you did mention how you make a little bit of something and see how it goes. Sometimes they call it like the minimum viable product, correct?
Yes.
Can you touch on that a little bit more, kind of what that is?
Yeah. So once you're past that kind of initial stage and you've got some feedback and you know that you found the people who are going to buy it, you certainly want to make sure that you're pricing it appropriately. So really important to actually drill into those numbers, make sure you're going to make money. On a product-based kind of business, you may have to make a certain quantity to be able to get that economy of scale for what you're buying. But on a service-based, one thing I typically see is business owners forget to put in a cost for themselves and for their time in terms of what they're doing. So we want to make sure that if you're thinking about making this your full-time thing and you're going to leave your job, that you can actually make the amount of money that you need to. So figuring out what does it cost me to actually deliver this out to my potential clients? And then what can I charge? And is there profit in there that's going to allow you to be able to get paid a steady paycheck, to be able to sell enough of it? Maybe you've exhausted now all your friends and family, and turns out other people don't really want it. And so you've got to actually get it out there to the masses and be able to see really what's that size of market and how many people are interested. So having that confidence, but not through sitting at home and toiling on your product or service on your own, actually being out in the market, testing things out and really seeing if the demand will hold and making sure you can actually be profitable. And I must say, because I work with business owners all the time, I typically work with those across all different industries. Sales are under 2 million, and some are just getting going. Some have been in business for a while. But when I ask all of them, how much money do you make on X? They usually don't know. And so most of them, they've come to me because they're having some challenges in their business. They're trying to figure out, because they've kind of left that part of the business to the side, and they're not getting steady paychecks, which is one of the reasons you actually go into business. So really want to make sure that the focus comes on the numbers.
Definitely comes on the numbers. And so, when starting a business, we always kind of talk about there's two different categories. There's a service that you can provide or a product that you can sell. And so technology is wonderful. We can sell so many products online right now. But building your finances to pay yourself and everything else is one of the things that you got to think about. Do I have to get a storefront? Do I have to get product? What other things do we want to take into consideration really starting, kind of making those assessments?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's just really important for any service-based entrepreneur who's listening or want to be or is thinking about it. When you go and you start up a physical location, you have a huge investment of funds at the beginning to get, if you're going to start a bakery, to get the place looking nice, to get the ovens, to get everything that you need to be able to start up. And so you're looking at a couple $100,000 probably. With a service-based business, people are thinking about, I'll just get it out there, and that there's not very many costs. So I want people to think about themselves as an investment. So no, I don't need to buy an oven to cook things at my bakery, but I might need to expand and invest in my skill set to be able to run this business. So that's one that's often missed. We want to make sure that once we've got it nailed down and we know what we want to do, we got to get a website up that's SEO friendly, that's functional, that people can easily make purchases there. And so that we've got that can end up being quite costly. Number one, to get someone to design it, as well as then you've got little plugins probably talking to your customer relationship management software, and you've got a bunch of other things going on. So don't underestimate what that kind of behind the scenes infrastructure is going to look like, because all of those recurring costs are going to be there. So you'll be spending a lot on subscriptions that you probably, of things I know that when I started my business, I had never heard of before. And so all of a sudden you've got these all rolling on. Now you're probably going to get some kind of, depending on the size of your business, you might start doing your financial results in Excel, but you're eventually going to move up to an accounting software. So make sure that you're budgeting for that. If you're going to be doing marketing and publicity for your business, as you should be, you might want to hire someone to support you, not necessarily to do ads, but somebody to help do the posting, come up with the copy based on your direction. And so you might be looking at bringing somebody in part-time, maybe a virtual assistant to help with the marketing or just some of the admin functions that are going on behind the scenes. I know when I left my corporate role and started my business, I used to be great at 3 things and I was expert. And then when I became a business owner, I had to get good at about 50, and I can't be good at 50. I can get by on probably 50 things, but I do need to reach out and get support. 2 things that are going to be true. It's going to take you longer to get things up and running than you think, and it's going to cost more. So I always encourage people to start with a budget. If they're doing a business plan, make sure that they're actually thinking about how long realistically till I'm able to make sales, and what are those expenses I'm going to have to cover up until that point. So you're going to have a cell phone, you're going to have your website, you're probably going to use some other softwares to get things done. You're probably going to have some networking outside of your home potentially. It might still predominantly be on Zoom or something like that. But there's going to be some expenses incurred with that for you to be able to do your networking. And then whatever it is that you do, if there's going to be any direct costs related to being able to fulfill the product or service. So it's usually the overhead stuff, the stuff that we pay whether or not we have any sales. A couple that will slip people's minds: you're going to be paying bank charges. Okay. Yep. You're going to be paying service fees. You're going to be paying an accountant at some point. You potentially will be paying a lawyer, depending on how you're going to organize yourself in your business. You do need insurance. So whether that's corporate general liability, or if you're doing something like a consulting-based business, you're probably going to need something like errors and omissions. And everybody should be looking into protections and insurance for cyber. We certainly know that those criminals are pretty smart. They're out there coming up with new advancements at all times. And we've seen, I'm based in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. We've even seen some public sector organizations in Toronto be hit recently with ransomware demands. That can happen to you. So making sure you've got all of those protections so that if something like that happens, I certainly know I wouldn't know how to deal with that, but I'm going to rely on my insurance provider to help me with that, protect my data, protect my customers' information.
Definitely. You touched on so many great points there. And it, both of us being entrepreneurs, it takes a lot longer for things than planned, and things are more expensive than planned. There's so many plugins you don't know about in websites or, the database system. And I think a lot of times it's like, well, once I make more sales, it will kind of all pay off itself. But it's like, once you get more sales, it means you have more people. You might need a bigger system. You might need new things to implement. So it's not always like, we'll get up to this equal bar. Your expenses will keep growing. Hopefully, as they will keep growing as you keep growing as well, which I think people need to take into consideration. But yes, a very thorough budget before you get started, because a lot of things can be added without it thinking twice about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have in Canada, we have a bank for entrepreneurs. It's called the Business Development Bank of Canada. On their website, they have a free template. So it's bdc.ca, a great budget template that walks you through everything you need to do. So if anybody's not sure what you might put in a budget, that would help you. You'd be able to pull down their Excel spreadsheet that gives you all the details, and will give you certainly ideas about all of the things you need to be looking at. And if you can talk to someone who's in the same industry, you can pick their brain in terms of what are the standard kind of expenses. And even Google is great for what are the expenses I might incur in this business, and they're going to bring up a huge list for you. So there's no shortage of information or support if you're not sure how to get started. The key is, though, that you take that step and you do the budget.
Definitely get some of these ideas, get the wheels turning, really get it all laid out. And so when you start a business, we're in a business to make money. And so investing and starting a business is usually from your personal funds, unless someone else is sponsoring that for you. But we don't want to be putting that income back in our regular funds. Can you explain more why about this, what we should be doing? Because that can get very messy very, very fast.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm based in Canada, so I'm going to give you the cold notes around structures and how we would want to look at that. So certainly you want to reach out to someone locally if you're going to be getting the structure set up for your business. So firstly, we need to think about how much money are we probably going to make in terms of sales. Is this going to be kind of the hobby on the side? We're going to have a small business maybe on top of a job, or are we going to make this our full-time thing and we're going to be growing it? So if it's something on the side, or you're going to probably contain it to a smaller level, you might leave the business in your own name and be a sole proprietor, which means that you don't go out and get incorporated. You don't need to do anything legally. But what you should certainly do, whether you actually incorporate or you do it under your own name, you should make sure you get a separate bank account for your business, a separate credit card. And so even though it's all going to have your name on them, that you use your Visa from this institution for business expenses, and you use your MasterCard or Visa from this other institution for your personal expenses, so that you can really keep those details straight. Because some people are going to be apprehensive as it is about the numbers in their business. But if you've got a big mess with everything all together, it's going to make it even harder for you to be able to figure that out. So keep everything separate. I encourage anybody who is starting a business to, especially if you're incorporated, so you've set up a separate company structure. And the main reason that people would do this is to actually limit their liability. So if there's any chance that somebody might sue you for whatever reason, you want to make sure that their reach is limited to the assets in the business. So if you are incorporated, you can get a lawyer in Canada. You can also get paralegal to help you with that. It's usually pretty inexpensive, and it doesn't take very much time. I would encourage everyone to go out and get access to credit immediately. And not a lot of credit, but something like a line of credit or an overdraft to attach to your business bank account. Get that credit card in the company name. And at the beginning, all of this is going to be tied to your personal credit score, but you want to start the clock on the credit history and track record for the business. And so we don't want to wait until our business is growing and we need more money to go out and start that clock. We want to do it as soon as possible. So keep everything separate in terms of structure, depending on your situation. And again, lots of resources online, and talking to a lawyer can help you figure out, should I be sole proprietor or should I incorporate? Most people for liability are going to incorporate and then get access to that credit so that you can really start off on the right foot, and you're building the company and building the credit as you grow and as your sales grow.
And I think that's something I learned this year, is that people carry their own credit and your business carries credit as well.
Yes.
And so at first they are tied to each other, but I had no idea that companies carried their own credit, which makes a lot of sense and is much easier if you're handing off a company to somebody else, or somebody else is taking over. That way it's not attached to you. But that was something that I definitely didn't know, which makes even more sense of why you want to separate these accounts, so one doesn't really affect the other.
Yeah, I would, because my background is in lending, I would say that even as you increase the size of your credit facilities, while it's going to be in the name of the company, the lender might be looking back to you to guarantee that. And so that's perfectly normal. If you have assets in your company, they may not, but most small businesses don't tend to have a lot of assets in the company. And so they'll be looking for outside support, but the company or the credit is granted to the company.
Awesome. And then, so you were talking about this sole proprietorship versus being incorporated. What would kind of be that line of, I should be incorporated versus just having a sole proprietorship? Is it amount of money? I know you were talking about protection. What are we looking for there?
Yeah, certainly there will be a dollar level at which it makes sense because you're going to start charging taxes. So may vary by state. That's not info I have at my fingertips. So you want to check into what is that dollar level in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to make 30,000 or more, you're going to start charging tax. Usually people will be incorporated after that, maybe if they got sales up to 100,000. The big reason, though, primarily that I help business owners figure it out is if there's any reason somebody might be unhappy, they might sue you, they might want to come back and try to get access to your assets. If that's even a remote possibility, that in itself is a reason to make sure that you get incorporated. The other thing too is that if in the future you may look to want to sell this business, you may want to bring on other shareholders. It makes it a lot easier when it's the third party entity in that incorporated business. It can exist without you. The sole proprietorship, you can wake up in the morning and start a business and you're ready to go. But that won't continue to exist if you're not there, if you're not around. So continuing to exist and also for attracting people to come work there can be another a reason, because as your company grows, people will know that it's a place to be. They want to work there, and that can give it a little bit more stature.
Awesome. And so I think we can kind of agree that, when if I started a jam business or, selling a couple things on Etsy, you don't need to go legal and get all this stuff done. You're selling things that hang on the wall. It's not really going to affect anyone. And so there you're kind of safer. But again, if that takes off and you're doing really well, then you have to go into the taxes and take it a little bit farther and things like that.
Yeah, because ideally you're making so much money that you want to shelter some of your income, and you don't want to be paying tax on everything. You're going to have a lower tax rate in your corporation.
Right.
So everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. But trying to think about what's my business, and almost coming back to, if you think about kind of just the key questions we ask about kind of any situation, like, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
What's driving me to make this particular business? What is it that I want to offer to the world? Who is it that I'm going to serve? When is it that I'm going to do this? Am I doing it on the side? Am I doing it as the primary thing? And then how? The how should be the last part. Like you've got to be clear on your values, clear on why you're doing it. If you're bored and you think it'd be fun for a little while, that's probably not the reason to start a business. But if it's been your lifelong purpose to help people do something, or you've realized, there's this need in the market and I can fill it, I've got the knowledge or the skill set or the service that can do it, I really want to go out there and make a difference. You can see that those are two different propositions. So it's really starts with you and what it is that you're focused on and what's important to you.
Definitely. And I think we could, your why is kind of why you get up in the morning and why you do this every day. And some days it's the highs are highs, but other days the lows are lows. And you're like, but why am I doing this? We're here. It's like, we want women to be financially fearless. We want them to be empowered. I know you're all about wanting these women or any businesses to really thrive and to be, to pay yourself, to be able to pay yourself and have that dream of why you started your business. And that's really like the why, which gets you up, which gets you going, and makes you get through those hard days, which, so that is a very important thing to kind of lay out and understand why you're getting started.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of everyone, women in particular, because there tends to be some shame or kind of discomfort with charging what things are worth and what your time is worth and what your service is worth. So I'm a fan of everyone making as much money as they can, not because I want people to be greedy and hoard money, but because I want them to be able to get a steady paycheck. I want them to be able to provide for their families or their friends or whoever it is that they want to provide for. Also, so that they can take some time off if they want. They can work less. They can volunteer their time. They can make monetary contributions to organizations that they care about. They also can be employers and create jobs for people in their communities or in other parts of the world. With everything kind of being virtual, you can reach people wherever. But when you make money, you have freedom, flexibility, and you have choice. And so then you can determine what you want your life to look like and who you want to help and who you want to serve.
Definitely. And that's, that's the reason why we start a business, and we have to remember that, it's not just the, so we have to pay ourselves. We want to keep paying others, employing others. So this has been a ton of great tips, for people who are thinking about starting a business, have that great idea, are there any other pieces of advice that you would give someone before they get started to launch, or any other questions they should really ask themselves?
I think trying something on the side a little bit before you leave a full-time job is important, because at the beginning it's very fun and exciting, but it is going to be hard work. And so if the why isn't really there, if it's just, I don't like my job, maybe it's about getting a different job. So be really clear about why you want to do it. Be realistic about that it's going to probably take longer than you think, and you're going to be expending more personal resources up front than you think. And things aren't always going to go smoothly. So just being resilient and ready for that, and digging into your numbers and knowing your numbers. So setting your pricing accordingly. Understanding the cash flow cycle of your business is really important too. So if we think of like an event planning business, they're taking a deposit when someone books with them, and then they're getting the full remainder of the payment the day of, or the day before the event. Sometimes when you're dealing with corporations, if you're a service-based provider, you may not get paid for 30, 60, or 90 days after you do your work. So understanding what's that cash flow going to look like. And you don't need to do it alone. So number one, find a network of people who can support you, who are fellow business owners. And this is a great place to do that, as well as if you're not comfortable coming up with a budget, if you're feeling uncomfortable with just the financial side of your business, make sure you do reach out and get some assistance. And that's what I love doing. Certainly coaching and supporting business owners make their dreams come true, because unfortunately, there's lots of shame and embarrassment around not knowing how to deal with the financial side of the business and our school systems. And I know from everybody I've talked to, the US does as poor a job as we do in Canada, and they don't teach you about personal finance. So where then the heck would you learn about business finance? So you're not supposed to know it, but you've heard us talking about it here today. So you do know now that you need to step up and learn that side of your business, but you don't need to do it alone.
Exactly. You're exactly right there. And yeah, you're starting a business with your expertise, whatever that may be. Maybe it's just making that jam or writing a book. That's your expertise. And that's why we hire people like Tracy, because that's her expertise, is the finances, and that's what makes you giddy, And so you have to find those people who have that passion and can really lift up that weaker arm that you have, because we can't be experts at everything. So there's nothing wrong with not understanding all of your finances, but then you need to take the step and come to the table, find a professional, because at the end of the day, if you're not making money, it's not going to work. Bottom line.
Yeah. And unfortunately, money stress impacts everything, and impacts your mental health, your physical health, all your relationships. It even can detract your focus from your customers, which is why you started the business. So they're going to feel that you're strained. So find the support that you need. If you have those skills already, that's wonderful. If not, just get some support so you can really tackle it, and review your numbers regularly so you can make sure if things aren't trending the way you want, you can make some changes. Maybe it's a few more phone calls. Maybe it's starting to do a little bit more marketing. Maybe it's actually just collecting from the people who you already did work for, because you haven't got their money in. So when you keep your eye on the numbers, you can be really proactive and really stay in touch with everything you need to do.
Awesome. I feel like this has been a great session of advice today. I appreciate you coming on and answering all these questions. Let me pull Dr. Barb in to see if she has any other last notes for us today.
I love the whole discussion. And Tracy, that's why we love having you as part of a Purse Strings Approved Professionals, because you're so wise. You just say it like it is. You're a business owner. You've worked with millions of business owners. You can feel our pain, and you know what it's like to have a passion for your business and how difficult it can be as well, especially in the early years, where you're really not making any money. And so funny, Tracy, because people will be like, oh, I want to start my own business so I can go have coffee at Starbucks at 10 in the morning and not have to be at my desk, in an organization. And it's like, yeah, but I have an attorney I have to pay for, an accountant I have to pay for, I have technology. I mean, all these people get paid before I do. So it may look glamorous, but when push comes to shove, it's and up at dawn, blood sieging, really difficult days that you're going to have ahead of you. And then there's some amazing days. So
For sure.
Your mission is important. Your passion for your business is important. And I love that you're, telling people don't jump in with both feet, test a few things out. So your wisdom is always appreciated. Your information, we've learned from you all the time. And so thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, and always happy to get people a little bit interested and excited about the financial side of their business. And even if you're just thinking about being a business owner, get started on the personal side of your finances. Make sure you know those numbers and figure out if you can afford to start a business. Could you take some of your funds and do that? So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. And will you just share with us where people can follow you? I know you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. Where can they follow you?
So if anybody has comments or questions, would love to hear from you on LinkedIn. So Tracy has an E and Bissett has 2 S's, 2 T's. You can find Bissett FinFit on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website is bissettfinancialfitness.com. So we have lots of great content there. We've got Young Money podcast, which is geared towards younger individuals. And then certainly Biz Money Talks is a show specifically for business owners. And you can check out prior episodes right on the website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. She's also one of our wonderful Purse Strings approved professionals. So you can check her out on our site, pursestrings.co. And we will be back. Actually, we won't be back next week because that's the United States Thanksgiving. Right. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. So thank you again, Tracy, for being here. And we'll see everyone again soon.
Thank you.